Peace and power to the true and living. What's good, family? This is Seaborn, Nacirfa-Sun, and I am you. Yo, I'm excited to be coming at you with yet another powerful video. In this one, we are discussing the gender/sex of God. And the purpose of this video, family, is to show that this order of man, woman, child comes from the very highest. And we must understand and honor that order if we wish to maintain our connection with God and reach our fullest potential in this creation. Because in our world today, we have this battle, this narrative of, men against women, especially here in America with, feminism. Some say men are better than women. Men are smarter. Some say women are better than women. Women are better than men. Women are smarter. It goes on and so forth. This whole battle of the sexes, men versus women, is very stupid and also very destructive. When you understand creation, you sit down and you really think about these things, you realize that it is a very stupid argument, very stupid fight, and it's very destructive as well. So in this video, family, I'm going to share with y'all a presentation that I put together. And in this presentation, we're going to see a few things, the sex or gender of God, and also there's the order of man, woman, child, and why it's so important to maintain that, and how the whole entire creation came into existence through the harmonious cooperation of feminine and masculine powers. So family, here goes the presentation. All right, family, let's go ahead and begin this presentation. So in the beginning was God. So we're starting off in the realm of God. Before we continue, family, we have to lay the foundation, meaning that whenever we are talking about God and the divine, we are talking about that which is eternal, meaning that God does not have a beginning and God does not have an ending. So the only way that we can understand this, because we have our point of origin within time, whereas God exists outside of time. So the only way we can understand this is we have to put it in the frame of time. So we have to say things like, in the beginning, this happened and that happened. So we got to give it a chronological order. So by doing that, we are never able to grasp the full reality of it. So the only thing that we can get is a faint representation. So this presentation is just a faint representation of the actual reality. But this faint representation is great enlightenment for us. For our level of existence, it brings us great enlightenment. So let's understand that. Now, moving on. So in the beginning was God. And God is the primordial light. Being the light, God radiates. Right? So let's take a second to understand this. God is the light. So what we know as light is not really light. For example, you will see the sun. To us, that's a source of light. The sun is not really light. What it is a later result of the existence of light. So everything that we know as light is not really light. God and God alone is light. And that light radiates. It cannot avoid radiation because that's a natural effect of light. So God radiates. Now, before we go any further, family, if you're not familiar with the Grail message, if this is new to you, then there's some things here that you may not understand, you may not be familiar with. So with that being said, I have 2 videos on my channel about the Holy Trinity. One I did by myself and the other I recorded with Brother Ikumi. I strongly suggest that you watch both of those videos, and it'll give you the background information necessary for what we are discussing here. Furthermore, family, the greatest source, as always, is the Grail message itself. And that's the only reason why I do these videos. So I strongly encourage you to refer to the Grail message as well, right? Now, let us continue. So God being the light, and a natural effect of the light is that it radiates. What happens is that this radiation blasts forth from God and proceeds for unimaginable distances in a downward direction. Talk about a cosmic blast, right? So this light proceeds from God in a downward direction. And as it proceeds from God, it cools off and precipitates. And through this process of cooling off and precipitation, worlds and beings come into existence. Right? So let me go ahead and do my illustration. So the light, right? The radiation blasts forth in a downward direction. Right? So these blue lines represent the radiation. So the radiation is blasting forth in a downward direction. And as it gets away from God, it cools off and precipitates. And through that process, worlds and beings come into existence because this radiation has all the ingredients for life. It has everything that is necessary for life. So through this process, the first to come into existence is the primordial queen, Elizabeth. Elizabeth is the primordial queen, also the primordial mother, the prototype of womanhood. She's the first to come into existence in this process, right? And then from her radiation, as it continues downwards, the next to take form are the archangels. The archangels. And this is where Lucifer comes from. That's where he has his point of origin. Lucifer, Michael, Gabriel, all the other archangels, right? So when the Bible says that we're not up against individuals, we're fighting against powers and principalities, we need to understand just how powerful this being Lucifer is. Lucifer comes from very high up, very powerful. These archangels, these are beings whom in their origin, they are larger than our planets. These beings are worlds within themselves. So Lucifer is a very powerful being. And that's what we're up against, right? Even though he is not in his full power because he's not in his origin, he is still very powerful, right? So comes the archangels. Now, let's go back here. With the Queen Elizabeth, this is the beginning of the divine realm. The divine realm begins with Elizabeth. So after the archangels take form in the divine, the next, as the radiation proceeds downward, is the elders. The elders, right? I'm gonna just put elders, etc. Because we're gonna skip down. After the elders, as the radiation proceeds further downward, at the very remote part of this we have the Grail Castle. That's a very remote part of this, right? So there's Grail Castle. This is where where the radiation, the remaining radiation is collected here in this Grail Castle, and it is collected in a vessel that is known as the Holy Grail, right? So this is the divine. So again, the remaining radiation is collected here in the Grail Castle. So God is here, and this is his divinity. So in the beginning, this is all that existed. There was nothing after this. So the light did not go any further outside of the Grail Castle. So this has always been. So in the beginning was God and his unavoidable minimum, as the Grail message refers to it. And it refers to it as his unavoidable minimum because the existence of God, the divine realm, and the divine beings are a natural result of the existence of God. So as long as God exists, they exist in this order. So we have God and his divinity. So creation is not even, we haven't even gotten to creation yet. Creation has not came into existence at this point. So before we get into creation, let's go a little deeper. Let's go into the man, woman, child. Let's go into that order, because the purpose of this video is to show that this order of man, woman, child comes from the very highest, and that we must honor and respect this order if we wish to maintain our connection to God, and if we wish to prosper and reach our fullest potential. Right? So what happened in the process of God's radiation blasting forth, proceeding further away from him? All the feminine parts separated from God and took form in a separate personal entity that became known as Elizabeth, the primordial queen, the primordial mother. Right? So all the feminine parts separated from God and took form here. So now we have God the Father. Because after the feminine separates, all that remains is the masculine, the male. Because the female has separated. So now we have God the Father. And all his feminine qualities are now in a separate personal entity. Are y'all follow me so far? Sorry to be repetitive, but sometimes, you can't just say things more than once, right? Now, so that gives us man, woman, and we're about to get into the child. Father, mother, man, woman, male, female, right? And as far as the divine goes, we can say man, woman, and the rest of these will be considered the child. Because in order for everything else in the divine to come into existence, the primordial queen had to first precede all of them. So from God, she had to be the first. And then through her, the rest. So as far as divinity goes, we can say man, woman, child, or children, all the other beings in the divine. But as far as creation goes, we have man, woman, and then over here, we're about to get into Parsifal. Parsifal will be that child. And we're about to get into Parsifal, how he came into existence and his purpose. So when God decided to bring creation into existence for the purpose of providing a home for the spirit germs, because these spirit germs were not strong enough to grow and develop in the divine realm. The pressure of God's light was too great for that. So in order for that to happen, they had to be sent further away from the divine. But remember, outside of the divine is nothing but darkness. There's nothing out there, emptiness and darkness. So in order for these spirit germs to be able to live, the light of God had to be anchored, right? Had to be anchored further away, further outside and away from the divine, in order to give these spirit germs an opportunity to live. So few things had to happen to make this possible. First, the Creator severed a part of himself. God severed a part of himself, and this part that he severed took form in a separate entity, in a separate personal entity that became known as Emmanuel. Right? Emmanuel. And Emmanuel took form in a male entity, because remember, all that remains up here now is just a male. Right? So Emmanuel took form in a separate personal male entity. And Emmanuel is the Holy Spirit. Actually, I'm just gonna write HS, and we're gonna get into that here in a little bit of why and how Emmanuel is the Holy Spirit. So Emmanuel is the Holy Spirit of God. So the Creator severed himself, and then another thing that happened is that this Grail castle was extended further. The Grail castle was extended further out. Right? So, in this Grail castle, in order to bring creation into existence, the anchorage of the light took place right there. How was the light anchored? It was anchored through Parsifal. So give me a second, family. Let me get my illustration going. Let me get my illustration right now. I'm not the best artist, so I'm using stick figures. Stick figures. But I'm gonna try to make it look right. So this is my depiction of Parsifal in the Grail castle. And notice I'm using two different colors here to represent the two different parts of Emmanuel. All right, so that's Parsifal. That is Parsifal. Let me write that again. Let me redo that. I don't like how it looks. So who is Parsifal? Parsifal is the primordial spiritual vessel that Emmanuel used to bring creation into existence. In other words, Parsifal is the primordial spiritual connection and anchorage of God with creation. Because remember, Emmanuel is God, right? He's 1/3 part of God. So Parsifal is the primordial spiritual connection and anchorage of the light with creation. Now, how did Parsifal come to be? Parsifal came, well, first, before we get there, notice that the black represents the primordial spiritual vessel that is Parsifal. The blue represents the light of God that is Emmanuel. And this primordial spiritual vessel, right, Parsifal was created by the primordial queen. Right? So I'm going to draw a line from from the primordial queen, from Elizabeth, down all the way to Parsifal, right? Because she created that primordial spiritual vessel. And then I'm going to draw a blue line from Emmanuel all the way down to Parsifal. Right? So through this anchorage of the light, creation was brought into existence. So now, since the light of God is anchored right here, through that radiation. And another reason, family, why it had to happen this way is also because then the radiation of God is lessened. Because remember, the reason why the spirit germs couldn't come into existence here in the divine world is because that radiation was too strong. So now here, through this process, the radiation of God is now lessened. And now creation can come into existence. So through the radiation of Parsifal, creation came into existence. And the first, right, part was the primordial spiritual. So what happened here, family, is a repetition of the same thing that happened in the divine world. So just like how through God's light, through the light that is God, all this came into existence, what is happening here too. So through the light, of God here in the form of Parsifal, right? That radiation now is proceeding further downwards. And remember, through this radiation, this radiation has all the ingredients for life. Everything that is necessary for life is within these radiations, right? So the same process is repeating. So now through the radiation of Parsifal, the divine comes into existence. Not the divine. The primordial spiritual comes into existence. And then from the primordial spiritual, as the radiation proceeds further downward, we have the spiritual world and the spiritual beings. Now, family, the primordial spiritual and the spiritual are two different species of creation, right? Two completely different species of creation. As a matter of fact, this is the beginning of creation. So creation began with the primordial spiritual beings. And then after the spiritual world and the spiritual beings come into existence, the radiation proceeds further downward. And now we have the animistic, the ring of animistic. Oh, what am I doing, man? I'm spelling this stuff all super wrong, bro. Gosh, Seaborn, you can't multitask, huh? You can't talk and write at the same time, can you? The secret is our family. Now y'all know Seaborn cannot write and talk at the same time. His brain functioning is a little too low for that, perhaps. I'm supposed to be writing animistic. I don't know what the crap I was spelling just now. So again, after the spiritual, we have the animistic. The ring of animistic substantiality. And then as the radiation proceeds further downward after the animistic, can y'all guess what's coming after the animistic? $100 for anybody who gets it before I say it. After the animistic is the material world. And this material world can be broken down into three basic divisions and even further down than that. But really, all the worlds in the divine, in the spiritual primordial, all these worlds can be broken down into further divisions. So the material world, the three basic divisions are the ethereal, the astral. This is going from upward downward, family, as you notice. Astral. And lastly, the gross material, gross matter. Gross matter. So currently, we are here, right? This is where we are today, our planet Earth. This is where our planet Earth is situated in the world of gross matter, right? Here in the spiritual world is where we originated, family, right? Here is where human beings originated. But in the spiritual world, we were only in the form of germs and we're not strong enough to take, to come to consciousness. So we had to leave the spiritual world and come down into the world of gross matter where the pressure was a little less, thus giving us an opportunity to mature. Right. And then after this process, we're supposed to return. So we left the spiritual world and came down here to the material world. After this process of schooling, we are supposed to return back to the spiritual world. We cannot remain down here forever. This is not our forever home. It's our temporary home, right? So this is the picture, right? Now let's go back to Parsifal. Parsifal is the king of the Grail. Parsifal is the king of the Grail and also King of Kings. The title King of Kings and Lord of Lords, that's a title that belongs to Parsifal. And there's a lot of false legends out there of Parsifal depicting him as a simpleton and things like that in search for the Grail. But that's only because human beings have lost, the various tidings that came to us long ago. We have lost and corrupted most of it. So we don't really have the truth, which is why the Grail message is so vitally important. So this is, once again, father, mother, child, male, female, child, man, woman, child. So you see, this comes from the highest order, family. This is a hierarchy that must be honored and respected if we are to maintain our connection to God and reach our fullest potential in this creation. Otherwise, we will not be able to. Now, I know the question may arise with a lot of y'all. So is it okay then to pray to and to worship the primordial mother, Elizabeth? No, it is not okay. See, and that's a problem within the Catholic religion because they worship the mother of Jesus, Mary of Nazareth. The mother of Jesus is a spiritual human being. She's a human spirit. She came from down here. She's not the mother of God. She had a specific purpose, and that was to be the earthly mother of Jesus. That was to produce the earthly vessel that the Son of God needed to fulfill his purpose. Matter of fact, let's go up here and complete the Trinity. So when the material world fell to Lucifer and needed to be saved, the Creator once again severed a part of himself, right? And that part that he severed took form in a separate entity and became known as Jesus. So again, we cannot worship or pray to the primordial queen because she's not God. She's not of the Godhead. Yes, she's the feminine, right, part of God. But the difference between her, Jesus Emmanuel, and God the Father is that She is of the radiation of God. Whereas this is the light itself. These are the radiations of the light. That's the difference. But the Godhead, God the Father, remains above and on top of everything as the creator. Therefore, the only one that we should worship and pray to is him. As it says, I am the Lord thy God. You shall have no other gods but me. And family, there is no friction here. There is no friction here. There is nothing but complete harmony. You know? The primordial queen is in complete harmony with God the Father. Matter of fact, the primordial queen is an embodiment of the love of God. Jesus is all, we know that Jesus is the embodiment of the love of God, but again, the difference is that Jesus comes from the light itself, whereas a primordial queen is of the radiation. But God and God alone is the one we pray to, the one we worship. This is the creator. This is the Godhead. There's a hierarchy here for a purpose. And when that hierarchy is understood, respected, and honored, everything reaches its full potential. Everything lives in joy and happiness. This is not some arbitrary dictatorship. This is the harmonious working together, harmonious cooperation of feminine and masculine powers. Feminine and masculine powers that all issue from God the Father. Feminine and masculine all comes from God the Father. Feminine and masculine are not opposite forces. They're not here to fight against each other. They're not competing forces, I should say. Opposite but not competing. Right? So once we truly understand this, because what's being done in our world today through this Luciferian lie, they're tearing us away from God by corrupting this whole process, corrupting this order. Creation is the harmonious cooperation of feminine and masculine powers. And not only creation, family. Matter of fact, let's go back to this. Not only creation, the divine, right? Here in the primordial spiritual, in the mystic. It's only here in the gross material world on this planet Earth with human beings where we think that the feminine and masculine are supposed to be fighting against one another, are here to compete and wage war and see who's better, or that the feminine and masculine are exactly the same, can fulfill the same purpose. It makes no sense, right? And furthermore, this is the reason why it's so important for us to understand and stand within our purpose. Because in creation, the woman is the bridge. That's one of the purposes in which the woman serves, the feminine serves in creation, is to be the bridge. What this means is whenever a soul is going from one part of creation to the other, there must be a woman there to serve as the bridge. Right? Let's go back to this again, right? Same thing happened here from God the Father. Right? To get down here to the archangels and everything else, right? There had to be the primordial queen here first as that bridge. And this is true for every part of creation. For every part of creation, going upward or downward. There must be the woman there to serve as the bridge. And with human beings, right? If we're going from, for example, I probably should just keep this up, right? So, for example, with human beings, we have things like pregnancy. If a human being is coming from, say, the ethereal to the gross material, how does that happen? It happens through the process of pregnancy. It happens through the woman. Right? Of course, the man is there to play a part. The woman doesn't do it on her own because, again, creation is the harmonious cooperation of feminine and masculine powers. But the woman is the bridge. The feminine and masculine were not meant to be separate. We're not meant to compete. Men and women are not meant to be separate. They're not meant to compete. They're supposed to be complementary to each other. And you got this rebellion against God with this whole false divine feminine idea that you find in the occultic with New Age spirituality. Even in African spirituality, this false divine feminine idea. And when they talk about the divine feminine, they talk about it in a way of replacing the masculine. Right? But look, let me show y'all. See this right here? This is the true divine feminine. This is the first divine feminine in existence. True divine feminine does not and cannot replace God. True divine feminine does not want to replace God. True divine feminine is in complete harmony with God. And by being in complete harmony with God, true divine feminine brings life, worlds, and creations into existence. But that only happens by being in harmony with God the Father. Not by being at war with God the Father. True divine feminine is not arrogant. So it's just our ignorance, family, our ignorance that hurts us. And furthermore, in this New Age spirituality, they want to talk about, they talk about you are God, right? So when you look at this illustration, this hierarchical structure, this is God right here. How are you God? This is what comes out of God. How are you God? See, that's some of the arrogance. That's some of the arrogance right there. Why are you not satisfied with your place of origin? Why are you not satisfied with being a creation of God? A creature of God, a son or daughter of God. Why are you not satisfied with that? Why must you be God? Do you even understand what God is? The thing about it is, we have never fully understood our purpose as men and women, as the feminine and masculine, We have never fully understood our purpose. And as a result, we have never stood 100% in our purpose to see all the promises of God that comes with that. We have never done that. Right? We have only stood in our purpose maybe 10-15%. And because we have only halfway stood in our purpose, we have caused a lot of chaos, confusion, destruction, and so forth. And then we turn around and look at God and blame God and try to do all this other nonsense to compensate for the lack. When the fact remains, family, if we understand this, when we understand the natural order of God, this hierarchy, it's not a dictatorship, it's not arbitrary. It's harmonious cooperation. When we understand that and we stand in it, when we reflect that, as we say in the Lord Prayer, right? On earth as it is in heaven, meaning that it is our responsibility, our duty, right? To replicate the paradise that we came from here on earth. Right? That's our purpose. If we stand in that purpose, it comes with the great promises of the Creator. But we have never done that. Never stood in our purpose. Do we even understand what our purpose is as men and women? All you women out there, do you know what is your purpose as a woman? Why did God create you? All the men out there, do you understand your purpose as a man? Why did God create you? These are the kind of things, these are the kind of questions that we should be asking ourselves. These should be the main concerns of our life, not all the trivial things, all the temporary things, right? What does God want of us? So speaking of purpose, let me share this illustration with y'all, right? This is the structure, the model, the idea after which we were supposed to design our families and societies and so forth, with the godly man, right? The man that stands in the light of God, being the heads of families and societies, with a godly woman, a woman who stands in the light of God, being the support to that, right? Let me share this picture with y'all. So we have, again, I'm not an artist, I'm doing stick figures here, family. We have the man, right? We have the woman. So we have the man, right? In front, we have the man. In back of him, we have the woman, right? So the man's job, his purpose is to be the protection, right? To be the protection from all the unrushing currents of this material world, right? To be the protection and the provider. The woman, right? Her job is to maintain the connection with the spiritual, right? So she maintains, I hope y'all can see this, and it'll bring too much of a glare. So she maintains a connection with the spiritual slash God. That's her job, right? And then she supports him from God to her, from her to him. So she's the support, the nourishment, the strength, because she remains a stronger connection with God, the spiritual, right? So he gets that strength and nourishment from God through her. And then he's standing in his place as the protector and provider from all the, the onrushing currents of the material world. Because when you understand that the woman, see, innately, the masculine, the male, the man innately will protect the feminine. Because subconsciously, he understands that there is something that's missing from him that she has. Something that he needs that she provides. So naturally, the male, the masculine, will protect that feminine. Notice I said the feminine and not necessarily the woman, because these days we have women that are very masculine. And a masculine man is not going to feel the urge from within to protect that. But the feminine, absolutely. That's a natural and innate thing to protect the feminine. So all these things are within us, family. And naturally, if we just would have remained on the course that God put us on, all these things would have just happened naturally. Everyone would have just fell into their place and their purpose. The woman's purpose is to be the guardian of the flame of the holy longing for God. And I know that's a mouthful. So let's slow it down. Let's break it down. The guardian of the flame of the holy longing. What is that? What that means is that innately, all human spirits, all human beings, innately, we have this fire within us, this innate longing within us. And that longing is like a fire. It is a fire. That longing within us for our Creator, to be connected with our Creator. We have that innate longing within us, right? That flame. And the woman is the guardian of that flame, meaning that her purpose is to make sure that flame remains ignited within the man. Her job is to make sure that the flame, that is the holy longing for God, she has to make sure that it remains ignited within that man. And in order to do this, she must stand completely in her femininity. She cannot mix that with the masculine. This is why this order is so important of the man, woman, child. That's why that order is so important. Right? So now the man, understanding that this woman, right, innately has something that he needs, he understands that she keeps that flame, that holy longing. He understands that innately, subconsciously, that she keeps that alive. He understands that she is his connection with God. So naturally, he protects that. See what I'm saying? So that's why this whole structure of man, woman, and child is so important. With a man being the head of the family and the head of societies and so forth, being that provider and protector. So that then the woman stands completely in her femininity, so that then she can support that. I mean, family, this stuff goes deep, man. So again, when we look at our societies, because look, if you reverse this, because we look at our world today, what are the feminist argument? Women can do anything men can do. There's no difference in between men and women. Women can be just as physically strong as men. Which is complete nonsense, which doesn't make sense, because if that was the case, family, then why are there two sexes? Why is there man and woman instead of just man, or instead of just woman alone by themselves? But no, God created man and he created woman. They need each other. The man is not meant to be alone. The woman is not meant to be alone. The woman is not complete by herself. The man is not complete by himself. Together they're complete. And they both have specific purposes to serve. So if you reverse that, if you try to put the woman at the forefront, right, family? And try to put the man at the background. It doesn't work, because she's not equipped. She's not equipped. God did not give us the equipment to deal with this, right? So it becomes a faulty armor, right? So she's not equipped to do that. And the man is not equipped to be back here either, because God did not give him the tools to maintain this connection. So this connection, right, cannot be maintained. It's broken. Broken and shattered. If you try to reverse that. And that's what we're doing today in our world. We are reversing that which God gave us. And we're fighting amongst ourselves, feminine and masculine, male and female. It's a destructive battle. So all these talks about men are better than women, it's dumb. If you're in a relationship, you should be in a harmonious relationship that is centered around living a life that is pleasing to God. Establishing a relationship that is pleasing to God. So family, until we understand and respect and honor what God gave us, this structure of man, woman, child that comes from the very highest, until we understand that, family, we're going to be banging our heads against the wall. We're going to remain engaged in a self-destructive battle, and we're never going to get anywhere with this. We are engaged in a Luciferian battle. All this is meant to destroy the order of God and bring about this Luciferian world order. That's all it is meant to do. That's all that's happening here. And we must be wise enough to realize what's going on, rise above it, and then try to pull others out. Again, family, this is why I stress the importance of the Grail message. So again, man, until we understand, respect, and honor this order, there will be chaos in our families, in our societies, and in our world. We'll continue to produce chaos as long as we continue to fight against this. As it says in the Grail message, the wisdom of God rules the world. Struggle, mankind, to divine his greatness. It is the greatest struggle. It is the greatest fight ever in learning the ways of God, the laws of God, in learning His creation. And due to our intellectual downfall, it doesn't come easy anymore. We got to struggle for it. But it's the greatest, it is the most worthwhile struggle, family. You know what I mean? So with that being said, peace and power to the true and living. This is Seaborn Nacirfa-Sun, and I am you.
A special book which clearly answers the unsolved problems of human existence. The vast knowledge mediated in its pages leads the earnestly seeking reader who weighs and examines objectively out of all the chaos of present-day confusion and distortion to clear recognitions. This book commands attention by its forceful language, by the clarity of its thoughts, and by the setting right of distorted concepts, unmistakably and sometimes severely but irrefutably explained. The laws in which the entire creation came into being and exists are plainly set forth. The world happening is interpreted in its true significance, and man's responsibility before his God and his fellow men is revealed and explained. Thus, to him who opens himself to these recognitions is restored the indestructible inner security of his personality. For the seeking human being, the lectures of this work deal with all essential questions and spheres of life: natural sciences, ethnology, social and economic questions, religion and church, psychology and cultivation of the spirit, family and state, sex and sexuality, occultism and spiritualism, justice and law, knowledge and wisdom, the world, time and eternity, and lastly, the recognition of God. Whoever bears the desire for it living within him and is willing to make the effort will be helped to fulfillment by the work in the light of truth, the Grail message of Abu Shin. The author writes, I wish to fill the gaps which have so far always remained unanswered in the souls of men, and which never leave any serious thinker in peace, if he honestly seeks for the truth. With my message, I now open the book of creation for you. The message clearly shows you the language of God in creation, which you must learn to understand so that you can make it completely your own. The author recommends that the lectures of this work be read in sequence and not picked out individually, seeking to judge the work in this way. The knowledge of the Grail message cannot be grasped by simply glancing through it. It is the sacred responsibility of the human spirit to recognize his God and his laws through which the human being and the entire creation came into existence.